So all the moves have been made. All the trades are now finished, and the reports have surfaced. And the Yankees, in my opinion, went all in. What's going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Ladequente here, bringing you my thoughts and the culmination of what the Yankees have done this trade deadline season. It's an incredible turn of events for the New York Yankees. Obviously, before today's deadline, the Yankees had acquired Ryan McMahon, Amed Rosario, and Austin Slater. Today, they go even further and bolster their team by adding in David Bednar and Jake Bird, something we spoke about earlier. And here now, at the deadline, the Yankees acquired two more players, Jose Caballero from the Tampa Bay Rays, as well as Camilo Doval of the San Francisco Giants. There's no doubt about it. The Yankees GM, Brian Cashman, has completely revamped the entire bullpen. What had been the weakness for the Yankees for quite some time in this season. A team that had been running on fumes, throwing guys out there that really should not have been out there on repeated back-to-back days because they had no other options. They had no other good options. When the Yankees suffered injuries to Fernando Cruz and Mark Leiter Jr., who had been relatively successful for the Yankees this year, and over-reliance on guys like Ian Hamilton, Brett Hendricks, and others really showed the weakness of his team. And obviously, when you go into a postseason run, you want to have quality starters. The Yankees have an absolute ace in Max Fried at the top of the rotation. Behind him, Carlos Rodon has been absolutely a perfect fit this season. And beyond that, you have young players, young starters in Will Warren, what we've seen now from Cam Schlittler in a couple of starts. And you also now have a returning Luis Gil, who's set to make his season debut Sunday. So what does that mean for the New York Yankees in this aftermath of the trade deadline? What does it mean for a team that is coming off of a utterly abysmal performance in last year's World Series? What the Yankees have been able to do this trade deadline is refortify this team's most dire weakness, and that's pitching. Now, obviously, the Yankees and us as fans would have loved to have been able to see them go out and acquire a starter. Starters were not really moved in this deadline. Not names of notoriety and presence. Guys like Sandy Alcantara, Zach Gallen, Joe Ryan, names that were bandied about in terms of being available, being acquirable, were all not moved. So what the Yankees front office and Brian Cashman was able to do was to go out and get the pieces that were available. And in my opinion, I think he did a very good job. The Yankees had only a couple of players that are even listed in their top 10 prospects right now, even touched in all of these deals. The Yankees were uber aggressive this offseason and during this trade deadline season. And I think that when you look at what this means for the Yankees this year, obviously they're going all in. Obviously they believe in this team, but the players that they have acquired, most of them still have time left on the books. So it's not just about this season, but Brian Cashman was able to solidify and grab players at this deadline that were going to be around for more time. This has been an incredible deadline, not just for the Yankees, but in general. There were so many amazing and absolutely mind-boggling things that happened during this deadline. Obviously, the move of Mason Miller, Carlos Correa being traded going back to the Houston Astros where he originally was drafted. Being able to see teams like the Rays kind of mix and match and play both sides of the fence as being both a buyer and a seller. Getting Griffin Jacks returned in a deal with the Minnesota Twins while trading away a guy like Jose Caballero. There's no doubt that this team, this season for the New York Yankees, has a lot riding on its shoulders. And for this team to be able to be successful, they had to figure out a way to get out. Obviously, the starting pitching market was not really developing, and they had to pivot. And Brian Cashman did so incredibly well. When you look at the fact that the Yankees were able to acquire David Bednar, Jake Bird, and Camilo Doval during the deadline day itself, as well as being able to bring in a guy like Jose Caballero, who has good speed, a guy who can play defense, who can give Anthony Volpe a spell at shortstop. This was a strong trade deadline for the New York Yankees. Obviously, it's all going to be a matter of how it plays out from here through the end of the season. But that being said, I think that when you look at what this team is going to be capable of with the pieces that they have acquired, with the players that they have on this roster, and potentially with the impending return of the captain, as well as some arms like Fernando Cruz and Mark Leiter Jr. in the bullpen, this team could be absolutely spectacular in the American League. There's going to be stiff competition, no doubt about it. The Mariners were super aggressive. Obviously, when you get past the American League side of things, the Tigers were also super aggressive. When you get past the American League and you look at what the National League teams have done, the Padres were unbelievably winners in this trade deadline, is the way things have worked out for them. You also look at teams like the Mets that were aggressive, teams like the Cubs that added, the Phillies bolstered their bullpen. There's a lot to be concerned about when it comes to some of these other teams, especially in the National League. But the Yankees have given themselves an opportunity here to be able to have a run, to have a path to the World Series once again. It is not going to be an easy path, but there is a path. So ultimately, what I see as far as this trade deadline and what it's been for the New York Yankees, to me, it's an A grade. There can't be anything else. Obviously, you would have loved to have gotten a starter, but being able to shorten the game the way that you have, with the bullpen the Yankees will now be able to employ, is second to none. Devin Williams, David Bednar, Camilo Doval, Luke Weaver, Fernando Cruz, Jake Bird. This is a game that you can shorten to 5 innings easily. So having the starters that go out there and give you 5 in those days where you do have starts from Will Warren, from Cam Schlittler, there's going to be opportunities now where we were afraid of the bullpen coming in, and now the Yankees won't have those same fears. To me, this was a strong trade deadline for Brian Cashman and for the Yankees, and it's going to give us an opportunity to have a path to the World Series once again. Obviously, anything can happen, and if Aaron Judge doesn't return, it's going to seem like a much more difficult task. But if the captain comes back and gets back to the form we know him capable of, being able to drive in runs with the caliber and frequency that he was doing at the beginning of this season, this team has put itself in a position where they could absolutely be a World Series contender in 2025. But ultimately, I want to hear from you fans, Yankee fans. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on this trade deadline. What do you think is the grade that you would give this deadline for the Yankees? And baseball fans as a whole, let me know how you feel your team did. Let me know those grades down in the comments below. And as I said, this has been one of the best trade deadlines, arguably in my lifetime, but definitely in the last several years. The amount of action that we saw, the amount of trades that we saw, big names that got moved, the fact that Carlos Correa with 3 years and $92 million still left on his contract got moved is something of unbelievable note. So no doubt about it, there's an opportunity for this to go down as one of the best trade deadlines of all time, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. So leave those down in the comments, and I'll check you guys out on the next video.